And so that's what I think.
So what would have to happen in order for us to get to some sort of consensus? Like, for example, with the education, with the funding of education, we're going to have to come up with something to hopefully ease the political polarization. Mm. And I'm wondering how one goes about doing that when both sides really think that they're indoctrinating each other. Mm. And what does that, maybe a better question, what does that even mean to have two parties who both think that the other is brainwashing the public?
It's tough because I feel like the brainwashing sentiments, this is hard because like as someone who like sits starkly on the political left, it's hard for me to like put myself in the shoes of someone who is a Republican and who sees the left as this like brainwashed group of people. Although like, I don't know, I think I'm very disappointed in the like left's just complete failure to try to understand where people on the right are coming from. And like to start answering your question, I think we do not have enough spaces where there's like non-violence is the wrong word. Respectful and open communication between people of different political orientations for them to start recognizing what values they have in common. Mm. And to address what concerns do all of us have. Mm. Like how can we best mediate those and come to a conclusion. Mm. Because it feels right now like there's such hostility and toxicity that is like making it so people won't even like go to a family holiday. Mm-hmm. If their grandparent like voted for Trump, for example. There's I mean, everything is political to some extent, but at the same time, politics is in kind of getting in everywhere to the point where people will prioritize it over other like reasons they have to be connected to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to the sentiment that politics is everywhere, having a conversation with someone who has a different political standpoint than you then bleeds into every other topic of conversation you could have, and suddenly the polarization is not just about who you vote for, but education, culture, geographic location, money, all of these things. So I think the moment where we engage in respectful dialogue, in dialogue that is filled with grace and understanding that, okay, I don't have to agree with you to respect you, I don't have to agree with you to listen. I think that's hopefully what our generation is striving for. I mean, I know that a lot of people in my circles, which are educated circles, so maybe I'm limited in that way. But even with my friends who are not in college or, can't go to college or, are working because that's all they can do, still share that same sentiment of, okay, yes, I come from entirely different worldviews than you, but I can still have a conversation. And I think as our world or our country becomes more diverse, more nuanced, more integrated in the sense that we all are starting to come from, I don't know, like I think the influx of people moving and transplants and all of this, you have people who have a hometown, people who have an ethnicity, a culture, sometimes multiple ethnicities, sometimes, nationality here or there. The more nuanced our personal identities become, I think the more accepting our conversations have to become. Because we all come from difference, and that's something to be celebrated and also something to be challenged in the sense of opening other people up to seeing, hey, this is how I live my life, how do you live yours? And I think that the more that quality of conversation exists with those who are of the elite class, with those who are of the working class, with those who are, in like state and federal politics. I think if those conversations are happening on a macro and micro level, maybe there's some sort of change. But that's a suggestion to institute an entirely new culture into the system, if that makes sense.
It's like impossible because there's so many places all over the country, all over the world that are not having any of these sorts of conversations. Like, there's so many tiny small towns, no one's moving there. It's like the people who've lived there, people who are living there have always lived there. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's so, if you come from this homogenous culture, this singular worldview and experience, like you find yourself completely incompatible with anything else. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that's like how human nature is, and there's just so many people that it's like impossible. I don't know.
Is that human nature, or is that more like an American Western nature? Because I think if we are in homogenous pockets or neighborhoods, California is like this, where, oh, California is so diverse, the whole, state has all of these different people coming from different places, but really it's these little like ethnic pockets of, oh, this is Koreatown, and this is Chinatown, and this is Little India, and here's where all the Armenians live, blah 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 blah, and you don't have a lot of like integration in the sense that New York has. I think that
Does New York?
That's true.
Well, New York is also
it's very segregated.
Yeah,
the
that
New
is
York
true.
City public school system is like
Yes.
the most segregated
That is
public
true.
school system
Yes.
in the country.
And I don't think we can.
but we are in closer proximity, so there's a little bit of more opportunity for those conversations, maybe. But
Maybe.
I hear what you're
I
saying.
think I'm kind of cynical, and I think the entire world is very homogenous in nature. That's why we have like ethnic states and ethno wars and all this different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I do think one thing that is human nature is to seek community and to feel like you belong in a group. I don't know, like I think we seek to be part of we're always going to want to be in a community. What was I going to say? I think it's leaving my mind. Yeah, but I'll come back to it.
I think also what the New York City mayoral race has made me realize is that a lot of it is economical. Economical. A lot of it is economics. A lot of the reason why people voted for Trump was very simply the prices kept rising when Biden was in power, and I want the gas prices to go down, and I want to be able to buy my groceries. And if this guy's not doing it, and Harris is involved in that as well, I'm going to vote for the other guy. And Mamdani's campaign, like early on in February, he went out on the streets and asked people, why didn't you vote, or why did you vote for Trump? It's that. And like, I think it's what I said, it's not, I think there's this tendency to portray the average Trump voter as this person that does not care at all about the rights of other people. Literally, like, total self-interest and like, total, hates DEI and everyone's woke and brainwashed. And I think there is definitely people like that, but there's also, like, everyone exists kind of on a spectrum. Like, the average American voter is a lot more complex than you'd think. And a lot of these people, are like, well, I don't agree with Trump on that, but I'm willing to set it aside because he's promising to lower prices, or he's promising to lower taxes, or he's promising to take us out of all of the wars, which, he's not done any of that. But whatever. And so I think that that's really, like, not to, like, rap Mamdani too much, but like I think he did a really good job in pointing out that there are actually a lot of common goals, and I think a lot of the fears that people have, like, they're being exhibited in ways that can be changed. I don't know, like the fear around, like the DEI studies that colleges are doing that are critical of America, like, I think it can be spoken about, and like people can realize, okay, maybe it's not being critical of the US to say that like racism exists. Like, I think that there is a way that people can realize that, but I also don't think that can happen without kind of a realization of what everyone agrees upon, which is like everyone just wants to have a higher quality of life. Everyone wants to, like, live and eat and have a home. And when neither side is providing that, but both sides are offering that, and both are failing, I think that there's just no way that there is going to be a conversation about anything extraneous to that, if that makes sense. And then these like prejudices and the scapegoating essentially, like it's happening with like immigration, it's not going to stop. Because that's really where it feeds from, is the fact that so many people in this country are not satisfied with their quality of life, that it's so much easier to like blame it on other people, blame it on universities and blame it on immigrants. But I do think that there's hope. I just think people need to be able to eat first. I think that's really,
I have a question here. So you said that like if once that happens, then the people who, you know, are creating comics like this are going to be more open to conversations about, you know, realizing that saying that race is a construct is not un-American. What should intellectuals and academics be open to realizing?
I was going to say something about this earlier. Like, I think the left has a humility problem.
The left or
Like a lack
intelligentsia or
thereof.
both?
Oh, both. Well, it's like, it's hard because so much of the left is educated, like has gone to college. I feel like there's a lot of overlap between people on the left and the intelligentsia, is that what we're calling it? Yeah, I think, you know, people don't want to admit that they're wrong. People want their ideas and their ideologies to be correct. I remembered what I was going to say. I was going to talk about, like, you brought up that in order to, like, resolve this polarity between the left and right, like, it would take an entirely cultural shift. Like, you know, we live in such a highly individualist and hierarchical country, in such a competitive one, where there is this everyone for themselves mentality. And I think that kind of competition and wanting to have intellectual superiority is a huge hindrance to conversation that fosters seeing what we have in common. But yeah, I think the people who think they know better on both sides frankly need to like shrink their heads down and just be willing to talk, like, and to see people even on the other side as also humans who have the same basic biological needs as they do. They want to have food and water. They want to have a place to live. They want to spend time with their families and, you know, enjoy all these just basic, like, you know, Maslow's base level hierarchy needs. Like, how do we make sure those are fulfilled? And, like, I think while most elite people have those needs fulfilled, they have too much of a superiority complex to talk with people who may not be entering these conversations because they're actually deficient in those needs.